Hey guys, this is John Zombro with the Lifetime Body, and thanks for joining me today. I hope you're having a phenomenal one. This episode is all about how to cook a wild game steak, and it comes from a number of comments and questions that I've received from viewers of this channel and listeners to the podcast and people who have responded to some blog posts I've written. Also, this month is Carnivore Month, and the carnivore movement is promoting meat consumption. And of course, as many of you know, I am a proponent of what I call the planet-based diet, which includes plants and animals, but today we're talking about meat. Specifically wild game meat, because I'm often talking about being a hunter and a butcher, and folks want to know more about that. But essentially the things that we do today will apply to any meat, whether that's domestic or wild. There are kind of three parts to that journey, and the first part is the field to freezer, then we have the freezer to kitchen, and then finally from the oven or stove or grill to the table, and maybe even to the mouth, if you want to look at it that way. But for this first thing, I want to talk about meat care. So first of all, when we're talking about hunting or harvesting animals, it's very important that we're harvesting healthy animals who are in a non-stressed situation, and perhaps even unaware that they're being hunted. That's often advised. And then the next thing we have to use is fastidious nature or cleanliness with field dressing. And rapid cooling is also quite essential for meat. And then ultimately, we want to do a very good job with our butchering. With wrapping meat, there are numbers of ways that you can do it. And this particular way that I have here is, this is an elk round steak, actually from 2017. It's so well wrapped that these will keep for several years. This is double wrapped. It has a plastic wrap and then it's vacuum sealed. I actually enjoy or prefer with a lot of my steaks to use butcher or traditional freezer paper. I'll still do the plastic wrap first and then I'll wrap and tape. But I didn't have any at the time that this animal came in, and so therefore it's kept quite well with the vacuum sealing, as you can see. So that's kind of a quick run through on what to do to get meat into a position or a situation where you can freeze it and keep it for a very long time, and then you'll take it out and enjoy it. And that's what we're going to look at next. Okay, we're back, and as you can see, we have thawed this steak out. I should mention that when we fresh freeze meat, particularly when it's wrapped in the double wrapping that I talked about earlier or vacuum sealed, it's a great idea to leave it in the refrigerator for just days and allow it to wet age a bit. Dry aging might even be more preferred if you have a walk-in cooler available that's temperature and humidity controlled, or even in consistent temperatures, a garage or a shed and a fan that can allow you to do that. But for the most part, I end up with the game meat having this fresh frozen meat that I will wet age and then merely rinse and pat dry, and then we have an elk round steak, as you can see. And this steak is in great shape. It's a nice deep red color, no brown, no freezer burn. That's really what you're looking for. And then I'd look at the thickness there. I'd say that's cut at about an inch. I like my steaks 1 to 1.5 inches, depending. And this is just a great cut. So now we've got to decide, well, what do we want to do with it? And if you have a tougher cut of meat than this one's probably going to be, and you want to use a marinade, that's fine. I won't be marinating this steak, but one of the ways to do that is to use an acid, anything that's acidic. This red wine vinegar, you could use apple cider vinegar, some lime juice. I didn't actually have a fresh lime, so I have some of this product. All these are adequate for making marinades. You can also use the jacquard tool, and this is a tool that has a number of really small knife blades, and when it's pressed into the meat, it can kind of tenderize the meat, but also it creates a great avenue for the marinade to penetrate. And on a thinner cut, you could hammer. I don't think I want to hit this delicious steak with a hammer, but you know, you have a flat side for increasing, you know, the thinness and the size of it, or also you can perforate it, kind of like making a Swiss steak or chicken fried steak if one's doing that. There's a way to do that healthy as well without using bad oils and flours we can look at another time. Or you can use a spice rub, and you can buy commercial ones. Probably a good idea to avoid those with added sugar and MSG. Many exist. I prefer simply to use salt and pepper, believe it or not. And so I always use a high quality salt. There are many out there. And what I'll do is liberally salt both sides of the meat. And you know, I'm really just kind of going by feel. I want to cover the meat, let that salt work in there a little bit, and then also fresh ground black pepper. Again, my favorite. Yours might be, you know, a little different. And before I flip the meat over, I'll usually just pat that down so we get good penetration. And then got my steak flipped over, and I will just repeat the process there. And that's kind of an example of how I'll you know, prepare a steak for cooking. Once I've got that done, I've got to decide, well, how do I want to cook this steak? And you know, with a cut like this, is a nice round steak, I'll probably do one of two things. I'll either grill it fairly rare, medium rare at the most, on a hot grill, and that'll be you know, roughly 2 to 3 minutes per side, turning twice to get those nice crisscross grill marks. Or another way that I like to do it is I'll heat up a pan or an iron skillet, preferably on the stove, at fairly high heat. And I may just massage a tiny bit of avocado oil onto the steak, sear both sides, and then finish it off in a hot oven for a few minutes. Again, either way yields a delicious product, and you don't get an excessive amount of char and any of the concerns that people have with that, but you do get some of that color and flavor. Where you really get into trouble is if you have a fatty cut of meat and you're cooking it over an open flame and it's getting blackened. I wouldn't advise doing that. But I'm going to prepare to grill this steak, and I'll come back and I'll show you, you know, what that process looks like, and also what the end product came out to be. Okay, folks, we're back from the grill, and I can't wait to see what we've created. I was trying to run the grill at around 500 degrees, but it's a blustery day here in southwest Montana. And so I was probably only hitting about 475 degrees. What I did with this steak was, again, it's an elk round steak, and I cooked it about 3 minutes on one side, and then I flipped it 3 minutes, and then I flipped it again and again. So it was a total of 4 rotations, so each side got 2 exposures, 3 minutes each exposure, 6 minutes per side, 12 minutes total on the steak, and let's see what we got. So taking the foil away, and you don't always have to tent your meat when you're resting it, but I wanted to really have this be fresh and warm and see what we've created. So first of all, you can see most of the juices or liquids have absorbed back. I'm not getting a lot of drainage out of that steak, and it also has some nice but not excessive grill marks, and that's what I was shooting for. Probably a good thing to say. In any cook's kitchen, you need good cutlery and have some tools and skills to keep your knife sharp. No place for a dull knife. So, I can't wait to do it. I won't hold back. Cuts easily, that's one key that we're looking for. And then when you take a look inside, you've got that kind of that beautiful medium rare finish that I prefer. I could even go a bit more rare, but I knew that for our audience, I probably should tone that back a little bit. Again, this is a game steak, but this technique would work with any steak that you have. And sometimes with these game meats, because they're a little bit lean, I like to add a little extra fat and flavor at the end. And so a small amount of pastured butter might be an option, and the same thing could be said for some really high quality extra virgin olive oil. This is one that I get from a friend who brings it from Italy, so it's really, I feel really special to be able to use such a good product. And you know, if you're coming to dine with me at the table, I'm probably going to also have some organic kale that'll be prepared to go with this, as well as a couple baked yams or sweet potatoes. And those are some of My favorite sides are carbs, and it doesn't matter whether you're a dedicated carnivore or a vegetarian, there's a place for you. And this really wasn't just about how to make a tender game steak or how to cook a steak. It's really about dining and nourishing and celebrating food and sharing. So thank you, and I hope you have many wonderful meals. Oh, and just one final thought. If you are liking this material, this content, by all means, please like, share, and subscribe. And also send me a comment, leave me a comment in the description box below so that I can create more of these types of videos. And I just really look forward to sharing all the messages of ultimate wellness and performance. And that includes food, but many other topics as well. Thanks, and have a fabulous day.